I was the person that put myself there, and I was the only person that was going to get myself out. And that was key.
It's the worst thing that could happen to a young person, in my opinion, because it's worse than death. When you die, it's over. But when you go through something like that and you're afflicted at the level you were afflicted, you carry that shame and that almost self-hatred or that feeling of I'm not good enough, whatever it is, for the rest of your life. Welcome back to another episode of the Unstoppable Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Crane, and I got my man Justin Judd in the studio today, virtually. He's in Salt Lake City, I believe, Utah somewhere. But Justin's a stud. He's got an incredible story. We connected, recently, actually. We first sat down and talked at Lance Bachman's event in Marco Island, Florida, just kind of introduced one another. And I'd been hearing about you. Guys would message me and be like, dude, you got to check out Justin Judd's story, man. Like, he's an overcomer. He's got a cool story. And I love that. Once I got to sit down and chat with you a little bit, right away, I just felt like a good connection to you. Like, this is a solid dude, you could tell. But I love being around and just hearing from people who have overcome adversity, because I truly believe adversity can become a superpower when you know how to leverage that experience. And Justin, real quick, before I let you kind of just like open up and share who you are, we were just talking off air about how a lot of people in life take things for granted because they don't know what it's like to have stuff taken away. They lack gratitude because they're always thinking about stuff that's going wrong or what they don't have. And when you go through some really bad times, it changes your perspective. You appreciate the little things more than you ever thought you could. And you stop taking your life for granted because you know how bad it can get. So let's start there, man. Why don't you just kind of introduce who you are, what you're doing now in life, and then let's go back to the experiences that shaped who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, bro. Super stoked to do this with you. Real quick, since you mentioned, because we connected a while ago, but I had been following you for a while. And, I'm always trying to grow. I'm always trying to better myself. I was a little bit worried because my mindset's on a certain level right now that if I joined a coaching group, I just wanted to make sure that it could actually help elevate me to that next level. And I had followed you for a while, and when you would talk and the things that you would say, I connected with it, dude. I was like, yeah, this guy gets it. I'm stoked to be a part of the coaching program and have you and your team help me take it to the next level. In regards to going through things in life, I always tell people, and this is nothing against people that are religious. If someone's religious and it helps them, I'm all for it. But you hear people always talking about getting to heaven. And what I see is like so many people live a miserable life right here and right now, waiting for something to come that they really don't know what it's going to be. And for me, I've lived in hell, dude. I've been at the bottom of the bottom. I've been homeless, addicted to heroin, Xanax, methadone, alcohol, just about everything that you can think of. And so my belief is we create heaven or hell right here, right now, because I lived in hell for a majority of my adult life. And so because of that, because I have that perspective, you're right, dude. I'm super grateful to have the life that I have right now. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful to be here. And so I'm going to do whatever it takes to create the life that I always knew I could, but I wasn't doing it.
Yeah. And so, that's where I want to start, because obviously you battled addiction. I battled addiction for 10 years, and there was a reason behind those choices, right? Like, people don't just get addicted to heroin by chance. Usually there's some significant pain that we're trying to numb and block out. Not everyone, some people grow up in really great homes and maybe they just don't have the love or whatever, or they try drugs and they really like it. But most people have some underlying issues that cause them to use the way that we did. Like, I abused drugs and alcohol, so did you. What was your childhood like? Like, where did you grow up and what was life like early on?
Yeah, this is going to get pretty deep pretty quick. And the interesting thing is that I didn't learn about this until about 4 years ago when I actually got sober. Life growing up was really good. My parents were super supportive. We didn't struggle financially. My mom always came and watched all of my sports stuff. My dad worked a ton. So he was kind of more like a Disneyland dad, but he provided, so I didn't struggle a lot in that sense. But when I was 8 years old, I actually got sexually abused by my third grade teacher, and I blocked it out, dude. I blocked it out for years. I always thought people were full of shit when they said that they blocked stuff out, but I completely blocked it out from the time that I was 12 years old until I was 37 years old. 12 to 37. So the last time I remember thinking about it when I was 12 was I had just gotten caught stealing people's wallets from a water park. It was called Seven Peaks Water Park. But after that happened, dude, I started acting out. And so I got caught stealing wallets at this water park. And I got taken to the police station at 12 years old. And my parents picked me up. And I remember being in the back of their car and they asked me, "Hey, did this teacher ever do anything to you?" And the reason they asked me is because he ended up going to prison. He ended up getting in trouble. But I remember when they asked me, I instantly was like, no. And it was because I felt like I did something wrong, dude. I was like scared for whatever reason. I didn't want to admit it. So I said no when my parents asked me that. And I actually didn't think about it again until I was 37 years old and I was in rehab and a therapist was doing a session on trauma.
Wow. Dude, so that's crazy. I mean, when you said you repressed it, like, the difference between repression is it's you're unconscious to the fact that you buried it. Suppression is like actively, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to this be known. Right when you said that, like I kind of got angry and pissed off because that happens so much. There's a lot of people that have predators like prey on them, sexual abuse, emotional, physical abuse. Sometimes it's in the household. A lot of times it's like a close family friend or a coach or a teacher. Well, we should just start hanging those motherfuckers from lamp poles out in the street. You know, like it's crazy to me that people like that get like a slap on the wrist. I don't know how much time that do you know how much time he did in prison?
Dude, I after I learned about it, bro, I did some EMDR, which just helped me reprocess the whole situation, and I just
Yeah, yeah, let's
realized
get into that because if initially I get angry, I've had family members and people that were close to me who were sexually abused and it ruined their lives. They had so much shame and so much
it
emotional
it, it,
distress.
it fucked me up, dude.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
made me feel like something was wrong with me, and so it's a whole nother story. But the reason I got into drugs, I felt like something was wrong with me, dude, and I always
yeah.
wondered what it was. I felt like I wasn't worthy. I felt like I wasn't good enough. This internal, I just had no value as a human being because of that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. It's the worst thing that could happen to a young person, in my opinion, because it's worse than death. Because when you die, it's over. But when you go through something like that and you're afflicted at the level you were afflicted, you carry that shame and that almost self-hatred or that feeling of I'm not good enough, whatever it is, for the rest of your life. Most people don't rebound from that. Most people it haunts them or affects them permanently, but it sounds like you figured something out. You were able to overcome that. But let's talk about, how it affected you in your adolescence. Like when did you start using drugs?
So I first started using at 12 years old. I initially started with alcohol at 12. My dad drank and he had a fridge out in the garage. And so I'd go sneak out into the garage and grab some of his alcohol. And then started smoking weed when I was 13. And then started like popping pills when I was about 14. It wasn't like I started popping like Adderall, Somas. I don't know if you've ever heard of those, but just anything that I could get my hands on basically.
Yeah, I went through a phase where I used to love taking somas. Those things, man, are so so strong, like, oh my gosh. It's crazy. I haven't thought about those in a long time, but if you take too much, all of a sudden you realize how fucked up you are. And it's like you just can't function. You can't function. And that's the whole goal, right? Is to completely numb out any feelings or thoughts about reality. Like that same with Xanax, right? You talked about Xanax and just pills in general. This is before fentanyl. We're the same age. How old are you? You're a little older than me. I'm 36.
42 today, brother. Turned
Dude,
40.
you look young, bro. You're looking good for 42. Today's your birthday?
Yeah,
Oh, this is perfect. Happy birthday, man. I mean,
thanks.
it's incredible because you can choose to change your life at any time. And people think once you get a certain age, like it's too late. It's never too late. If you decided to change your life today and you got sober, you could have another beautiful 40, 50 years. Like, and the quality of life when you're doing it the right way, it's so worth it. Like people that struggle for 50 and 60 years and finally figure it out. Like, thank God they do. We're lucky that fentanyl wasn't prevalent when we were growing
Oh,
up. Like I
dude.
used to get so drunk and so high and then just take handfuls of pills. And there's so many times where I'm lucky that I woke up the next morning. Like I could have thrown up and choked on my throw up. My heart could have stopped, or you stop breathing if you take too much barbiturates and alcohol. And for whatever reason, bro, like we didn't have that fate.
Yeah.
We For a reason. Did you have a lot of friends growing up who overdosed and died?
Yeah, I've had over 20 friends overdose and die. So, as you know, because I'm 42, the Oxycontin epidemic, it wiped my friends out. All of my friends kind of partied growing up and stuff, but once the Oxycontin epidemic came through, it wiped my friends out.
Yeah, what state did you grow up in? Where did you grow up?
Utah.
Oh, you did grow up in Utah, okay.
Yeah, but we
I mean,
used to go to Vegas because there was doctors in Vegas. It's only 6 hours away, and there was doctors in Vegas that would just prescribe it to anybody.
yeah, dude, that's crazy. I mean, the same thing was happening, like, in Florida, right? Those
Yep.
doctors there would just put out these scripts like crazy, and that's why a lot of people ended up turning to heroin, and it sounds like that's what happened to you, right? So, you start taking Oxy and other pills, and they're expensive, and then you can get heroin for cheaper, and it's more potent on the street, and is that kinda how your journey went with your addiction?
Yeah, that's how my journey went. You mentioned like we kind of lucked out that we weren't in the fentanyl era, like 100%, dude. So I was telling you a little bit, but I've overdosed 3 times. My first time, I was on life support in the ICU for 8 days.
Your
Woke up.
first time. Your
My
first time.
first, yeah, I had just graduated drug court. I don't know if you've ever heard of drug court.
Yeah, how old were you?
So I was 22 years old, just had turned 22. I picked up 16 felonies, my first charges ever for prescription fraud and prescription forgery, but ended up getting through drug court. But I was just white knuckling it. I was drinking when I could, and because I was still able to pass a drug test if I had a few days in between drug tests, and got done with drug court, started hanging out with a girl that was selling Oxy, went to a rave, took some ecstasy, went back that night, hung out with her, and it was random. It's not random. It's the law of attraction. We were hanging out, and she's like, "Hey, do you like opiates?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "All right, I got a present for you in the bathroom." And she had a 80 chalked out in the bathroom for me, and boom, I hit that right there. And me and her continued to hang out a little bit. And a week later, I had done some Oxy, some Xanax, and drank all in one night. And I ate some fajitas that night, and so the steak and stuff, it got caught in my lungs. They call it aspiration pneumonia. But anyways, that's kind of what caused the overdose with the mix of all those substances.
How'd it get caught in your lungs?
Dude, I don't know all of the details about it. I know that when I woke up from a coma, you wake up and there's a breathing tube down your throat and a breathing tube in your nose, and they pulled that tube out and all of that fajita stuff. I ended up puking up. So I don't know all of the details of it. I just know that they told me obviously it was the drugs that did it, but because I had eaten that meal that night and some of it got caught in my lungs somehow.
You just passed out wherever you were at, and then someone found you?
And that, this is a crazy story. So I ended up sleeping at her house, and she found me at 3 a.m. blue, like with my teeth just clenched and foaming out the mouth. Well, she was selling Oxycontin. Like, she was a pretty big Oxy dealer. And so she had a safe in that room with all that Oxy. She didn't want to get in trouble. So she actually called a buddy. They called the ambulance, and I was naked, but they dragged me out to the road and left me in the middle of the road, and called an ambulance for the ambulance to come pick me up.
And so when you got to the hospital, you were in a coma for 8 days?
Yeah, 8 days. Don't remember any of it.
So what's the last thing you remember that night?
Having sex.
And and then and then what? And then waking up in the hospital, nothing in between that? When
Nothing
you
in.
woke up when you woke up, did it feel like you were asleep for a long time, or were you just out of it? Or what was it like waking up out of a coma for 8 days?
Dude, I was just out of it, bro, and I had no recollection. I didn't have any kind of like near death experience. It was like my life just went black for 8 days, dude. And then I woke up.
Was there anyone there at the hospital when you woke up that you know?
Yeah, my mom, my dad, my sister, and my nieces and nephews.
Yeah, and what was their reaction? Like, when you saw them, did you know, like, "Oh, damn, I must have overdosed or something," or how long did it take you to realize what was happening?
Right when I woke up, my mom and dad had come in once they were, allowed to come in, and they had let me know what was happened. And then and then it hit me, and then that shame that I know that you've experienced overwhelmed me. And my nephew ended up coming in, and he was like, Justy, why did you do it? And I was like, why did I do what? And he's like, why'd you do drugs? And so anyways, dude, it was just a super, super shitty situation.
And the crazy thing is, like, that you said that was the first time you overdosed. This is the part about addiction. It's so powerful. What are they saying? Like A and NA, it's cunning, baffling, and I think powerful. And it's true. When you're in the midst of it, like, it doesn't matter that you overdose. It doesn't matter that you go to jail. It doesn't matter that you're ruining your life. You feel like you cannot stop. Like, you cannot break free of that overwhelming feeling to use or get numb or whatever. So you were 20 something years old at this time. What happened after that?
Yeah, you're right, bro. I had someone bring me in more oxy while I was in the hospital, bro. You know
Yeah,
what I
see,
mean? Like
yeah.
it's crazy. I always tell people, like, because you hear about rock bottom. For me, rock bottom's not, it's not an external thing, bro. Because I overdosed 3 times. I was in and out of the court system, incarcerated, dealing with that stuff. Never stopped me. I didn't actually stop until I was hurting so bad inside that I was faced with the decision to either give up or actually change.
So did that just accumulate over time or what was it? Because
Oh,
you almost died. You were in a coma for 8 months. You overdosed two more times. And, this is in your 20s. You said you got sober at 36 or 37.
37.
So you went another decade plus of using. What was it that finally got you to get sober?
I had a stroke this last time before before I got sober. It paralyzed half of my face for like a month. So one of my eyes wouldn't shut, and then my mouth wouldn't shut. So this eye would shut, and this would stay shut, but like this would stay open. And I woke up every day seeing my face half paralyzed. And dude, number one, it scared the shit out of me. But number two, it just clicked to me that it was a direct reflection of how I was feeling internally. And so I didn't know what to do. I had gone to rehab 9 times before that and just wasn't able to figure it out. And so I was really at a loss. So I decided to go to an AA meeting. A dude got up and shared at the meeting, and I knew him. He was a good friend of mine, and I used to go hard with him, and he went hard. And for me, that was important because I always felt like I was different. And like he went hard, and he had been sober for over 4 years, and it gave me this little like speck of hope that maybe I could do it. And so he came up and talked to me in that meeting, and he's like, dude, it's awesome that you're here, but you need some serious help. You need to I was still using, dude. He's like, you need to go to detox, you need to go to rehab. So anyways, that's kind of where it started.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's timing's a real thing. Timing of life events and then seeing the right person at the right time. That reminds me of, when I went to jail, I got celled up with one of my childhood friends who was facing life in prison as well. He was wild. And I saw him hitting his knees and reading the Bible every morning. And I was like, what the heck's this guy doing? Like, out of all people, kind of like you, like, he went hard. He was wild. Like, we were crazy together as youngsters, and then to see him, having faith and being positive and wanting to be sober, I was like, wow, if anybody could do it, like if this guy could do it, anybody could do it, type thing. So just me seeing that, it changed my perspective. That started getting me thinking about a higher power and maybe those circumstances were happening for a reason. And kind of like you, like seeing that guy at the meeting and recognizing that he was changing. Sometimes you only need that one moment to see an example like that of somebody or respect. That's why it's so important for us to constantly be examples for other people because we never know who's watching. And I'm sure you've gotten a lot of messages since you changed your life from people who have struggled, from people who feel, low on life, battling addiction, whatever it is. And I'm sure they've said, like, Justin, I'm proud of you. Or thank you for sharing your story. Like, you're helping me. And that's what it's all about. But before you got to that point, you had to fix yourself first. So, like, what was that first step after that meeting, or what did you do after that meeting?
Yeah. So So when you ask me what was it, I attribute to two things. Like number one, and I mentioned a little bit, but dude, I was dying inside, bro. Like I really was. Like I didn't want to live anymore. For me, it was like, dude, you either need to like give up or you actually need to change. And then that mixed with seeing my buddy who had actually done it just gave me a little bit of hope that I could
Yeah,
actually do it.
and seeing yourself in the mirror like that every day.
Oh, dude.
Seeing y like, seeing your face not working and seeing like, "Dude, I'm doing this to myself." It's almost like you're at a crossroads, like, "I'm either gonna die, I'm either gonna blow my brains out or overdose again, or I'm gonna figure this shit out." And,
Yep.
so the ability to see yourself looking like that in the mirror consistently and having your body not function, like, sounds like it woke you up, started to wake you up.
Yeah, it was powerful. And then, dude, the powerful thing is like that whole, all of those things together, it put me in a super raw spot, dude. It put me in a super raw spot where when I decided to make that decision to change, I told myself that I would do whatever it took, whatever it took. And one of the first things that happened is when I made that decision that I would do whatever it takes, something interesting happened. I instantly took accountability for where I was at in life, dude, for everything. It wasn't my third grade teacher that had put me there. It wasn't the court systems or the law that had put me there. It wasn't people that had done me wrong that put me there. I was the person that put myself there, and I was the only person that was going to get myself out. And that was
Yeah.
key.
Yeah, that's key, man. Because the way you described it is like, by taking accountability, it created acceptance. Like, "Hey, I can't change what happened to me in 3rd grade. I can't change all these things. I'm powerless to that. I am the one who has been using drugs. I am the one who's been making these decisions since." And, acceptance is the key, man. For anybody that's currently stuck in life, or you feel like you're not living the life that you want, or you're battling addictions, you have to trace it back to when it started and what were those life events or circumstances that created that habit or that shift in your mentality and who you are. Chances are there's something or someone that you're still holding on to, a resentment, shame, guilt, and that stuff's gonna plague you till the day you die unless you can heal and let go of it. So I love how you said that. And we talked about this a lot previously. Like, you have to take accountability because no matter what you go through in life, you still have a choice and a decision as to
Yep.
how you react and what you do with those circumstances.
Yep.
So that was the first step. And what happened for you after that? What were the next things that changed for you, or what were kind of some of those epiphanies you were having?
Yeah. So ended up going to rehab. One of the major shifts during that program. So I guess I didn't think about that like third grade experience when I took accountability. I just like took accountability for where I was at. But she was doing a lesson on trauma, and so she had every person in the rehab. It was group therapy, and so she had everyone put their heads down, and then she went through 10 questions. And basically the point of the exercise is if you answer four or more out of those 10 questions, chances of being an addict goes up by like 99%. The last question that she asked was, if you've ever been sexually abused, please raise your hand. And dude, I remember I had my head down, and I remember thinking to myself, damn, I feel bad for anyone that's raising their hand right now. And then boom, I went straight back to being in my parents' car when I was 12 years old when they asked me if something happened. And then I started to get some flashbacks of the actual experience. So yeah, that's when I recalled that experience, which was really powerful for multiple reasons. Number one, I was able to do EMDR with her. I don't Have you ever heard of EMDR?
What is that?
Yeah, it's a super intense form of therapy. Basically, you go one on one with a therapist, and there's different ways that they do it. But the way that mine did it was she would move her finger like this, and I'd have to follow it with my eyes. And while I was following with my eyes, she would ask me to tell the story. And then while I was
Yeah, something
telling,
with the rapid eye movement. Yeah, I've read about that.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it helps you reprocess the memory, dude. So I went from thinking that I had done something wrong to realizing that that dude had groomed me, and I fucking like I was 8 years old, dude,
Yeah.
and so it helped me release it, which also helped me release like the initial anger that I had towards him right when I recalled that situation too. And don't get me wrong, I'm with you. I think those people need to be fucking dealt
Yeah,
with.
but no, but for you, having experienced that for your own well-being, you need to get to a place where you can truly forgive, which is so crazy. Like, how could you ever forgive somebody for that? But it's not even to forgive the act. It's so that you don't feel ashamed of who you are,
It's for
because
you.
that's really important. Shame, there's a difference between shame and guilt. Guilt is like an action you've done, you feel bad about it. You're like, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Like, that was a stupid thing to do." We've
Yep.
done plenty of those, right? But shame has to do with how you feel about yourself, like your character, your self-worth. And shame, you can't change that. Like, well, you can, but that's an underlying feeling that you carry everywhere into life versus a isolated act that happened. And the craziest thing is, man, and I think this is why people who have been sexually abused have the hardest time to recover versus maybe like somebody who went through other stuff growing up, is they can't forgive the person who did it because it just feels so wrong. It feels counterintuitive, right? But the forgiveness is for you because Justin didn't do anything wrong. Justin's not a bad person because that happened. Justin's not any label. It's like, and it's crazy how that works, man. And I'm interested in the EMDR. I want to know what that acronym stands for because I've heard about that therapy. And so you're moving your eyes side to side, you're recounting the story. What happens after that? Do you remember?
Yeah, so she'll stop at certain points in the story, and then she'll talk you through it a little bit, and then she'll start moving her fingers again and have you go back through the story. And like each time you go back through the story, somehow you like start realizing like you just process the story differently. And the cool thing about it, dude, is it's actually reprogramming your brain. It's
Yeah.
reprogramming your brain because the messed up thing is when that kind of stuff happens to us, even though I didn't remember it, it still affected me every single day, dude. It affected the way that I would treat people. It would affect, my view on life. It was affecting me the entire time, and I had no idea.
And you know what else too kind of popped in my mind as you were sharing that? Like you probably had never told anyone that story in your life.
Nope.
So this is very valuable for anybody that has skeletons in their closet and stuff that they haven't shared because you feel bad, embarrassed, ashamed, whatever. There's something very powerful that takes place when you are willing to be 100% honest and say, this is what happened. I know for me, it was life changing. I didn't talk about my past ever to anybody. I stopped even going to family functions or hanging out with people that I grew up with because I didn't want them to ask me. And I can imagine your situation, you didn't even remember it. But then once you did, it was like, well, fuck, who do I talk to about this? Do I want to talk about this? But there's something
100%.
so liberating about just saying, you know what? This is what happened to me. This is how I felt. It's free, it's freeing, it's liberating. And I think it also probably for most people takes a long time to get to that place. And that's why we suffer for so many years because it almost is like there needs to be time that passes from that event where we feel safe enough and sick and tired enough of what's happened since then to finally just be like, fuck it, dude. This is what happened. This is what
Yep.
I went through. It's almost like you're at a crossroads, like we talked about earlier, where I can't go on any longer like this. Like,
Yep.
and that's kind of like when what's the saying? When the pain of staying the same is less
It's
than the pain of change, you'll change, right? Like the thought of changing. It's
yep.
kind of like that in a certain sense. Like I can't go on like this anymore. Okay, so and did you feel like when you say you were reprogram your brain? Did you notice like a real difference after that day where you opened up and shared and you did the treatment with the therapist?
I did. It was super heavy, but I did feel a difference like right then and there, dude. Like the weight off my shoulders was like I could feel it. That being said, like one of the things they have you do in that exercise, they let you know because they're reprogramming your brain, dude, it's going to bring up some emotions the next couple of days. And so they let you know that. And so they say, anytime you have an emotion or a thought about this experience, just put it in, a glass container, put a lid on top of it, keep it in that container, and then we'll open up that container in our next therapy session. So I will say it did mess with me for a few days, but I just continued to work on it with the therapist.
Yeah, it needs to be a process. It can't be something that you just do and it's over with. And it's like, well, then, bro, like honestly, part of healing or recovery is progression. Like a lot of people go to therapists for years and years and years and they don't change. Or a lot of people, they go to AA and they don't have success. I'm a proponent of AA. I think it's a great place to start getting sober and to start changing for addicts or NA. But I think there comes a point where then there needs to be a continual progression where you elevate beyond that version
I
of yourself.
I agree.
You know what I mean? And like they don't really do that in AA or therapy. In therapy, they focus a lot on the problem. And I think once you figure out what the problem is and you start resolving it, then it's about, okay, like what life do I want to live and who do I truly want to become? And your whole purpose has to be that pursuit because that pulls you away from that bad time in your life, and then you go out and get these results, and it's almost like it almost validates those times. Or the title of this episode is like turning your adversity into a superpower. That's how you do it. You got to then use it as leverage and fuel to go out and get those results. and
Yeah,
and
dude,
right?
I could go on and on with this podcast today, but you bring up a really good point. One of the reasons that the place that I went to was so powerful was they had really good therapy, but on top of that, they had one of the number one life slash mental health coaches in the country. And
Wow.
so the therapist would process your past with you. And Todd Sylvester's his name. You can go look him up. He's got a huge following, but he would focus on your future and focus on the person that you want to become. And that was key for me because I always had gifts growing up, dude. I've always been a hard worker. I've always been competitive. I've always had something in me that wants to win. I always had it, but I just lost it along the journey. And I just felt so shameful that I wasn't living the life that I knew that I could live. So working with Todd and focusing on the future, that was key. Because dude, you can only do therapy for so long until your brain's just like, zzz, like how long am I gonna focus on my past? Like it happened, I need to deal with it, but I also need to focus on the person that I'm gonna become.
Yeah, 100%. And so what'd that journey look like? I mean, I see what you're doing now at Chirp with Ryan Fenn. I see you at these events, like, now you're putting in the work even more so in the gym and dialing in your health with Unstoppable and what we're doing. How did you make that transition from rehabs and working on yourself to your professional career and what you're doing now?
That's a good question. Todd specifically walked me through some exercises that I knew of, but I had just stopped doing. So initially, he had me doing affirmations, and even if it's corny, he had me do them in the mirror. I wasn't allowed to wear a hat or wear a hood or anything. He wanted you looking directly at yourself in the face. And it was uncomfortable to begin with, dude. Like I would do the affirmations and I didn't believe them. I didn't like the person that I was looking at in the mirror. But I continued to do it and follow his advice. And little by little, I started to believe it a little bit more and be able to say it with more confidence while I was looking in the mirror. Another thing that Todd had me do was he had me start working on, like, I know you're a frequency guy. He's big in the universe. So my dad had me reading Tony Robbins books and Wayne Dyer's books when I was like 14 years old. So I also had that knowledge in my head and I believed it, but I had lost it. And so he started talking to me about the power of spirituality, the power of frequency, the power of our thoughts. And I just became obsessed, dude. I became obsessed. If you talk to Ryan, he'll tell you I'm a master manifester, dude. It's one of my gifts, and it kind of always has been, whether I'm manifesting positive or negative, because I get focused and I get obsessed and I focus on things, and that is, our thoughts are the signal that put things out there, and our emotions are the magnet that draws things back to us. But anyways, that was kind of a long answer, but that's where it started in there. Is Todd just started helping me remember some of these principles that I knew were important, but had just lost along the way. And then from there, dude, I don't know. I've just done whatever it takes, man. I'm starting to realize more and more. One of the things that I learned in rehab was you have got to move your body. You have to move your body because these things get busy. And especially when you're going through those kinds of situations, your brain gets going quick and it can bring you down really, really quick. And so I learned that if you move your body, it slows down your mind a little bit and just allows you to like focus on that one thing. And the more and more I get into it, like if someone was to come ask me today, if you had one piece of advice that you would give to somebody to change their life, what would it be? I'd tell them to get into the best shape of their life and to do those workouts early morning.
I agree with you 100%. By getting in the best shape of your life, you develop such a powerful mindset, habits, belief in yourself. I mean, the benefits are so widespread. I agree with you doing it in the morning because if you notice when you work out, you feel better after. So why not do it first thing in the morning so that you go into your day already elevated, right? It's a little hack, but it's not that big of a secret. It just requires some willpower at first. I trip out, like I'm leaving the gym this morning. It's still dark out. We've finished our workout already. And I just couldn't help but think about how many people talk about what they want to do, talk about their goals, talk about all this shit, and they were at home sleeping. You know what I mean? Like there
Yep.
comes a point where if you want something, you got to get your ass up and go after it. And if you're not where you want to be financially, physically, in your relationships, in your life, you got to get your ass up early every day and work until you have it. It's not going to come to you. And you probably realize that by getting punched in the face by life over and over. And you realize, okay, I gotta go after what I want. Like I know what it's like to slack and neglect myself to a great degree. Man, who could I become if I actually put forth maximum effort and truly went all in? You said something earlier. You're like, whatever it took. It was a shift in your mentality. It wasn't even like, "Oh, I know exactly what to do." It was almost like, "I'm gonna figure it out. Like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. I will find a way no matter what." It's that type of mentality ingrained in you. That's the prerequisite of success in so many ways. And so the last thing I wanna ask you, I could talk to you about this stuff forever because we share a lot of the same, philosophies, and we've been through a lot of shit. But, you said you're a master manifester. I
Yep.
love that. I think I could take on that title too. I've called my shot plenty of times and it turned out to become a reality. And it's such a cool thing when you figure it out. You're like, wow, I literally am a magnet. Whatever I think and put out into the world and align through my actions to, it's going to happen. Like it will,
Whether good or bad.
whether good or bad. Most people manifest unfavorable circumstances and they don't
Yep.
even realize it. But
Yep.
I remember having this conversation with someone and I was like, "Wow, everything that I dreamt about, prayed about, and thought about in prison is now my reality." So I know it works. Now the next step is to think even bigger and to dream even bigger because we know that it works. But I'm curious, man, like what are some things that you're going to manifest, in the next 5 or 10 years? Like if you could call your shot right now and tell people what Justin's going to manifest, what are some of those goals and dreams and visions?
Number one, I'm going to start a business, which I've already started. It's called Tech Games. So I want to create a community. I don't know if you know much about the software world, but these tech companies are huge. They've got tons of employees. They've got a lot of money, and they're all really competitive. And they all think that they're the best. And there's a ton of burnout in tech because everyone's grinding. And mental health is pretty bad in the tech space. So I want to start a business called Tech Games, which is a place for people to get outside of the office and compete against each other. It's going to promote mental health through physical movement. So softball leagues, basketball leagues, pickleball leagues, these different companies can go out and compete against each other. And the four pillars are going to be connection, community, creation, and culture.
I like that. What is that? The 4 C's? Connect, right?
Connection,
Connection, creativity.
creation, culture, and competition. Another thing that I'm going to manifest is I'm going to be financially free to the point where I can focus only on passion projects. So I'm not the type of person that's ever going to just stop working, dude. I like the hustle, but I really want to focus on stuff that I'm passionate about. So number one, it would be that business. Number two, starting, another podcast and really just giving back, man, because I feel like with the experience that I've gone through, if I don't figure out a way to really give that back as much as I can, I'm doing a disservice to everybody around me.
Yeah, I fully understand that. There gets to a point where you've conquered your demons and you've gotten to a place that you wanna be in life, and now it's time to be of service to others. And that's how you always keep your own journey in perspective. What I mean is a lot of people, whether they relapse or they make a bunch of money and they sabotage themselves or whatever, there's examples everywhere. It's because they forgot what it was like when they just wanted to get sober for a month, or they just wanted to, have that first six-figure year in business, or they just wanted to, like, they would have been fine with the bare minimum just to know that they could do it and they were on the right path. And then they get really far ahead and they forget that feeling and they jeopardize everything. So being of service and coaching, speaking, doing what you want to do, podcasting, it helps you to never forget what it was like to change your life. And then you recount through other people's stories your own journey, right?
Yep.
And I love that, dude. And if you ever need a sponsor for the tech games, bro, Unstoppable's got your back. You know
I
that, right?
appreciate it.
We'll have those fucking tech guys doing burpees, right? Like till they're just throwing up. That'll be one of the contests. No, but I love that, dude. And like, you got a good heart. You got a genuine heart. You work really hard. You got a great mindset now. So whatever you focus on, you're going to be successful at. You know how to do that. And that's the gift that you have now. Like, you went through the struggle to now have this gift unveiled to you, and now you can do a lot with it. A lot of good in the world. So before we wrap this up, bro, like, anything else you want to share or touch on?
I think the only thing I really want to mention is, like, you talked about it a little bit, but I think a lot of people are at a certain point in life or certain age in life where they just feel like it's too late to change. Like, it's too late. And I'm just here to tell you, I was at the bottom of the bottom. We didn't even get into all of the details. We just got into a few of them, but I was at the bottom 4 years. I've done more in 4 years than most people do their entire life. Seriously, I've done more in 4 years than most people do their entire life. I can't wait for what the rest of my life is going to look like. Yeah, and I want people to know that. I get it. I get it. When I got sober, dude, that was one of my thoughts. It's like, fuck, dude, I've wasted my whole life. Like, what's the point? Like, is there really any point to do this? It's going to take me forever to get my life back. It's just not the case, man. If you really make the decision that you want to change your life and you are willing to do whatever it takes, it's never too late.
100%, man. 100%. And like, you can do, like you said, so much in a year, a half a decade, a decade. Oh my gosh. Like, you can experience and do so much in a decade with the right mindset, not getting in your own way, healing yourself, going after what you really want. It's incredible. It truly is. And when you said that, internally, like, I smiled because I know that feeling. I know that feeling where you're like, damn, I just accomplished more in 4 years than I would have in my entire life had I not changed. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't get it and they kind of just go through the motions and they die, with untapped potential. It's true. I know a lot of family members and friends and people who are on that path and who have succumbed to that path. That's why I do what I do, dude. Like, in a way, I'm going to honor them and who I knew they could have been. Some people are just so afflicted they can't overcome it, or they didn't have these experiences that open their eyes the way we have. We're very blessed.
I
We're very
agree.
blessed. And I talk to Matt Fleming about this all the time. Like, if you've gone through some crazy adversity and you've overcome addiction or some horrendous life circumstances and you're still here, you're blessed. And it's honestly a responsibility now to give back and to be an example for others and show them what's possible. Because
I
just like
agree.
that guy in your first AA meeting, just like my cellmate in jail, you never know who's watching, and God puts you in the right rooms with the right people at a specific time for a reason. So,
Yep.
hey, dude, we're gonna change the world together. You freaking do your part. I'm gonna do my part. We'll continue to make an impact, brother. And I can't wait just to see you keep growing, keep leveling up, and to watch your journey and be a part of it, man. So I appreciate you for being here. Have so much love and respect for you, and we'll touch base again soon, my man.
Awesome. Appreciate you, bro. Excited to be a part of your program. And I mean that.